next stock, which obviously ARK Invest have actually bought into, which is Spce, ticker Virgin Galactic. So obviously they're one of the biggest players at the moment. ARK have invested in them in their ARK Q fund. Obviously, I imagine they'll be transferred into the Spce ETF when that gets going. But essentially, Virgin Galactic, owned by billionaire Richard Branson, have been hoping to get a foot in the space industry, and differently to other space companies, have been looking into space tourism. They went public via a SPAC by our very own Chamath Palihapitiya. Yeah, Chamath getting amazing gains on everything. Yeah. Honestly, I'm going to start preaching to him soon enough, but he's obviously got such a great track record of investment. So usually where he goes, the money goes and the returns go, to be honest. But Virgin Galactic's a bit of a funny one. I was looking through their earnings report, and you'll see they took a big hit recently of 15%. And that's because 3 days ago they published their earnings. And their earnings report wasn't particularly, obviously they're very much, they've got no proof of concept yet. They're working on it, but they haven't done a proper test flight. And the earnings were sort of as expected. Their costs were pretty controlled, which is always good to see in something like this. But all their money obviously comes from investors. Interestingly, they tried to sort of slip it under the rug a bit in a sentence that they were delaying their test flight from end of February to May, because a solution they'd inputted to get the rocket off the ground for end of Feb has now caused a new problem in the engine, to do with electromagnetic problems, and now they're having to fix that. So it depends how you look at it. If they would have launched and it wouldn't have worked, they would have plummeted. And as soon as it's one of those companies, as soon as the investor loses faith, they've lost a huge revenue stream. So they're very, very skeptical and very reliant on investors, which is kind of dangerous, because you do see the other companies that we've talked about who've had, I say small amounts of revenue, but they're like 20 million, 30 million, etc. And then they're projected to go up. Virgin Galactic's just, they've had very, very small amounts of revenue, really. I think they didn't even have any revenue this year. So
yeah, I mean, my issue with them is, like you just said, the funding. You know, you just don't know how many problems are going to be along the way. When they do get it, and they get it right, you know, I think they're selling a ticket, give or take, correct me if I'm wrong, about 250,000 a ticket, is it, initially? And they've got a backlog on that that's pre-booked. So it's the in-between of actually when they do get it working, I think they'll do fine. But the process on that, you know, is reliant on funding.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it. I mean, they had $80 million worth of tickets bought when Richard Branson announced it. Yeah. But they were trying to get, they were trying to get aircraft in the air years ago. So people really didn't think it would take this long. So I wouldn't be surprised to see, obviously, a large amount of that 80 million has obviously been returned. But it goes to show the market's out there. Really, obviously, only if you're rich at the moment, really, can you afford such a ticket. I know Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie were some of the tickets bought, which obviously is great. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised to see it to be a trending thing. If they can get and do it safely, then they will hugely benefit. But it's still 80 million, not a huge amount in the space sector. It is good, but it's a difficult one, really.
Yeah, I think they're kind of targeting, well, their market per se is 2 million high net worth individuals in the whole world. So, I mean, it's a lot of people, but then you have to run the assumption that 2 million high net worth individuals are going to want to hop in a plane and go to space, which is unlikely.
Yeah.
I think, I don't know. It seems like a bit of a lofty goal, and maybe it's not as crazy as it sounds as well. Because if you look at the way air travel started, didn't air travel start kind of as this luxury, like bougie thing that you would do, and only the rich people could really travel by plane.
Yeah, that's the way they're building it as well.
Yeah, it's kind of the same concept. I mean, even if you look at the CEO that they have in charge, it's literally a guy who used to run Disney parks.
Yeah.
So, you know, they're kind of going for that real novelty, like, you know, that luxury novelty vibe, you know.
Yeah, millionaire's theme park, basically.
Basically, it's kind of Westworldy almost, but
yeah, it's bizarre. The one good thing I did see, they have a spaceport built in New Mexico already, and really it has to be but they are building reusable, obviously planes which are going into space, but sort of planes, jets, rocket. It's kind of a weird mix, but the aircraft that they are using are reusable. Really,
that's a big thing.
Yeah, because they save so much cost every time they decide to torpedo into the ocean. And really, I think as long as they can do that, then I think they'll be okay. Again, it will come down to how much do these aircraft cost to maintain and build, because it's difficult, really. But I have seen them. Yeah, that's it. I have seen that they are trying to get involved in space logistics. So I think basically carrying goods to the International Space Station. So they've essentially got two aircrafts. One is for tourism and one is for logistics, which is essentially a cargo plane for space. So really, I think the tourism's there for the novelty, and then it will be propped up by a steady logistical stream. I just, I'm very undecided about it, really, because I just can't. I'm not sure whether the market's there for it. I wouldn't be surprised to see it in future just get bought out by one of the other larger players in space, and they take over their space logistics area and the tourism on the side. But I think that's certainly a more skeptical stock than the rest of them. I think it's just potentially got more funding because it's part of obviously the Virgin Group.
I mean, they are kind of burning down their cash, right? Yeah. So 3 months ended from March of 2020. They had 431 million, I believe, and now they've got 373. So it's this slowly burning through. You know, obviously they can probably ask an investor or something like that and pull some money in, but it is a risk.
So they are backed by Richard Branson. Well, it's his company, isn't it? So
I think he stepped down, does he?
Did he?
Well, yeah, he's not the CEO.
Not anymore, no.
No, they've got Michael Colglazio or something.
Everyone wants to travel in space, and for me, obviously the initial thing, 250 grand. You know, you're looking at the not even millionaires, the multi-millionaires to afford a ticket. I think after that, I think the next target will be making tickets more affordable, and obviously that's just through technology and trial and error. But everyone wants to travel in space, and I can see a massive target worldwide. I'd buy a ticket.
Same.
But with the right price, and there is more demand in that sense. So I think maybe in the next 5 years, but in the next 10 to 15 years, I think we will see that with the tickets dropping down in price, and that will be their main concern, because that's what people will want. So with a mass backlog and so on, I think in the next 5-10 years, obviously that will be their main focus, and then they will minimize tickets. But there is high demand in it. For me, I think everyone wants to do it.
See, I wonder whether the first couple of years the demand will be there, and then it will be it will fall off. I think because loads of people have done it that are millionaires. People will want to do it. I just don't know if they'll want to do it 250,000 enough.
No,
I mean, you could go on the holiday with 250 grand.
Cost basis. If the cost isn't down, I think it will die out. But there's only so many people that can afford 250k a ticket.
Yeah.
So for me, I think their intentions will be to reduce that. I can see it in high demand, but not soon. And
it's going to be a while.
Yeah, and with the problems currently for me, at their price, I would be skeptical buying it because when there's ongoing major issues, it does drop the price. And for me, I think they're just a little bit. They're not high priced in the long term, but initially, I think they're just a little bit too risky to put a trade on. But
yeah, I think anything that starts off as like a first mover, a new market, a new product, or anything like that, they always start off unprofitable, low scale, very hard to access. Look at the early computers, air travel, anything. Basically, it's just anything that first starts out. They're trying to work out how to scale it. Yeah. So I think like in the first few years, what I'd be looking for personally before I want to invest in something like this is like, can they actually pull off a flight? If they can get one flight, even just a test flight, something up in the air, something tangible working, then you can kind of get a better picture of how this is going to play out. When it's kind of still conceptual. I mean, because even the two companies that we spoke about previously, they have tangible things happening. They have stuff in the air. They have launch pads. They're actually doing stuff, but still not quite convinced yet.
Yeah,
personally.
With the backlog tickets, that's only if it works. So
exactly, it's conditional.
That's it. I think obviously, and you saw how much, obviously 15% drop in their share price as soon as they delayed it by 2 months, essentially. They'll do it in May. Like, really, in the grand scheme of things, it's a tiny, tiny deadline. But already shareholders are getting frustrated about, and obviously,
do you just take your profits if you're 50% up? Because for me, I think it was about $15 to $20, and that was just a nice little bounce play. It used to literally drop sort of about 12 and hit 20 and then keep dropping, and then it rose. So I think a lot of these guys that are in since 15 to 20.
Yeah.
And, do you take profits and move it on to something that their rivals or something in that industry that you think may do better? And I think with more problems along the way, I think you might start seeing that, because you lose faith in a company sometimes. I think they're trading at about $37, so give or take, people are almost 100% up.
Yeah, that's it. But obviously, really, if you were to invest in Virgin Galactic from the start, obviously, I haven't got the graph in front of me, but I remember basically they shot up at the start and then crashed back down, same as a lot of others when Corona hit.
Yeah.
So, I mean, a lot of these investors tend to be long-term investors by now, because really after they recovered post-Corona, they've sort of been pretty steady up. I wouldn't be surprised to see a lot of people try and just, because the thing is, if they do fly in May, then the share price will go through the roof, really, because that is the clearest indication that they are getting there. And I have heard from a lot of the shareholders and research that a lot of people are frustrated just because they're not really telling them a lot. Really, obviously, they were meant to be flying in May, and they told them on the 25th of they told them meant to be flying in February, and they told them on the 25th of February that they're delaying it. So I don't think it's gone that well with investors, to be honest.
If if you're a retail investor now, I wouldn't be trading it. I would be watching it, but I think I think especially like we just said, with the market conditions now, I think you're watching it in the next 2 to 3 weeks with information coming out. I mean, I would say medium conviction with this one. I wouldn't say high, which that's obviously how we trade. Just having a backlog is great, but if the product doesn't work, like George was saying, it means nothing.
And well, problem is, I don't know.
I'm sure they will. They've got. They're not a brand new company to any business industry. You've got your math and so on. They've got a great team behind them, so I'm sure they will. But again, at the back of your mind, it's still a problem.
Yeah.